Sandy says read, and welcome to the channel. Today we are going to do a review and discussion of Young Elizabeth Green by Constance Savery. Trying to get the glare off of it. There you go. All right. I picked up this short little novel because I had read Emma, a novel by Charlotte Bronte, and Another Lady. I read this one very recently. That review is coming for you guys because I've got it wrapped up with a bunch of other stuff. I read this and I enjoyed it very much. I really liked the continuation of Emma by this other lady, okay? You guys out there might know that when Charlotte Bronte was nearing the end of her life, she had written the first 2 chapters of a new novel, Emma. Okay, she did not get to finish that novel, unfortunately. She passed before she could. But back in 1980, Constance Savery did write a completion of that novel. She wrote her interpretation of how the novel might have gone, and I really liked it. I really did enjoy this book, and the way Constance Savery's voice continued Charlotte's voice. I liked the way she imagined how the story could have gone. So I thought, hey, I would like to read more by Constance Savery. I went online and I figured out who that other lady was. Didn't take a whole lot of sleuthing to find it online, today, in today's internet society. It didn't take very long to find. So I picked up Young Elizabeth Green because it is one of many, many books that Constance has out there to her name. There's over 70. Okay. This one was available through eBay. Yeah, I think I got it through eBay. It was less expensive than some of the other titles. So this is the one I picked up. I read it. I enjoyed it. So we're going to talk about it today. Let me give you the specs. Young Elizabeth Green by Constance Savery, first published in 1954 by Lutterworth Press. This paper book was published in 1975 by Lutterworth Press. This particular version is 128 pages. It's written in third-person point of view, past tense. And let me read the back cover for you. Now, guys, this is dark type on a dark pink background. So forgive me if my ancient eyes give us some trouble here. I'll do my best. 15, Elizabeth Green, called the school monitress, and young Elizabeth ran to answer. 15 was the number that had been allotted to her when first she arrived at the orphanage many years before. It was sewn on all her clothes and stamped in all her books, and now she was going to leave it behind her forever. She was 15 years old and had been offered her first post as a governess in charge of Donata Deverell. Young though Elizabeth was, she had a rare gift for dealing with unruly small children, and sad though she was to leave the orphanage, where she had lived a quiet and happy school life, nervous though she was at the thought of her new post, she set out to love and care for her new charge. But as soon as she reached Deverell Court, Elizabeth found that a mistake had been made. Donata wasn't a naughty 6-year-old at all. She was a wild, harum-scarum girl of Elizabeth's own age, rampaging around the countryside with her cousin Nelmont. The Deverells had expected a strict, elderly governess who could take Donata in hand, and though Elizabeth did her best, she knew in her heart that she was too young for the post. Must she go back to the orphanage, a failure? Set against the background of Regency England, this story shows a gentle girl struggling to live up to her principles and to instill her own faith, her own tranquility of mind into a pair of delightful scapegrace cousins. Right. Now let me give you the Sandy synopsis. Elizabeth Green is a 15-year-old orphan who has been studying and overseeing younger girls at Crowgarth's female orphanage. The headmistress, Miss Tadcaster, helps the older and graduating girls find employment. The widowed Mrs. Deverell of Deverell Court, read big money, is in a hurry to send for a new governess for her little cousin, Miss Donata Deverell. So her letter to Miss Tadcaster is unclear. Elizabeth takes the stagecoach to Deverell Court, and a pair of riders nearly overturned the thing on the road. One of the riders is a lad named Nelmont Deverell. So we're introduced to how rambunctious these cousins are. When Donata flounces into the schoolroom, she can't believe that Elizabeth is her new governess, because it turns out the two are the same age. Donata and Nell conspire to make Elizabeth look older by giving her old lady clothes from an old Aunt Georgina's trunks. You guys, this works. Donata is a spoiled little rich girl who has played a mean prank on a relative named Rhoda in the past month or so. And that's one of the reasons her last governess, Miss Barrington, left so suddenly. The story follows Elizabeth struggling with trying to help Donata and being devastated when, after 6 or so weeks, she figures out the girl has been sneaking away to meet up with undesirable friends and has been staying up all hours of the night to read undesirable novels that were locked away in a drawer by a former governess. Elizabeth writes a letter about her failure, confessing her age and resigning her post to the widow, Mrs. Deverell. Now, we're not giving up on the synopsis yet. We still got more to go, but let's go to page 103. I'm going to take a look at this because I wrote in the margin, this poor girl feels totally inadequate, because Elizabeth does. She feels like this is just the end, right? She's actually, in this scene, she has ridden her horse, Snowbell, to an area where the former governess, Miss Barrington, lives. And she's discovered that some of the Deverells that she's been staying with have gone to visit Miss Barrington. And she's just feeling totally inadequate here. There were two ways of approaching the cottage. With the mien of a pricked bubble, Elizabeth walked round to the front garden. 3 horses were tethered to the fence where once she had tethered Snowball. She knew that Cosmo, Ughtred, and Nelmont must be calling on their old governess. They had found her at the pianoforte and had been listening. Now they were telling her the latest news of their by-election that had so absorbed much of their time and thoughts lately. Miss Barrington's keen, clever face would be alight with interest as she discussed the prospects of the candidate and the future of his party. I can't play, and I don't know how to talk politics. Even Donata knows more about them than I do, thought Elizabeth. I have set myself up for a governess when I am nearly as ignorant as Tibby. She's feeling really sorry for herself there. Okay, back to our synopsis. Even though Elizabeth has had minimal effect on Donata's behavior, she has had a positive effect on Nell. And Donata tries to defend Elizabeth to her elders and guardians. Elizabeth returns to the orphanage in shame, but a rather ambiguous ending leads us to believe the widow Mrs. Deverell has sent for Elizabeth to be a companion to Donata rather than her governess. So we do get a nice ending. We do get a nice ending for poor Elizabeth Green. We do get to see her not ride off into the sunset. We do get to see her have a happy ending, which is nice. Now let's talk about our characters as we do in these reviews. Obviously, we have Elizabeth, our main character, Elizabeth Green. She is a 15-year-old. She is a pious young lady. She wants to do her best. She is really tormented and tortured by the idea that she might be lying to her employer in this novel. Throughout the novel, she feels bad about the fact that she's dressing like an old lady. She's giving the guardians for Donata the impression that she is older than she really is. She feels bad about that, okay? And she feels, like we just read on page 103, she feels like a failure because she's not older, because she's not more worldly, because she doesn't know more than she knows, because she can't teach Donata more things. Yeah. Okay. We also have a character named Tibby Marsh, little Tibby Marsh. She was mentioned right there on page 103. At the end of that, we mentioned this little girl. She is a 5-year-old. She's the granddaughter of Mr. and Mrs. Watson. These are neighbors to the Deverells. Mr. and Mrs. Watson are. And little Tibby Marsh she's one of the orphans at the orphanage where Elizabeth was stationed before she got the call to go be a governess. We have a character named Mrs. Hunt. She is, think of her as Mrs. Fairfax from Jane Eyre, okay? There you go. She receives Elizabeth when Elizabeth first arrives at Deverell Court. Okay, and so she is aware that Elizabeth is not older. She's aware that Elizabeth is only 15. Some other people that we have at Deverell Court are Cosmo Deverell. Ughtred Deverell. These two are cousins, and they're older cousins. They live there at Deverell Court, and they are acting as guardians to Donata while Mrs. Deverell is away, the widow. We have a gal named Kitty. She is a servant there at Deverell Court, and she wants to learn how to read, and Elizabeth is teaching her how to read during the time that she's there. And obviously we have Donata, little Donata Deverell. She is this precocious, rambunctious little 15-year-old who is very used to getting her way. Very used to. I want you guys to think of her as like Nellie Olson from the Little House series. Think of her that way. Okay, she's used to getting her way, and she's used to manipulating people to get her way. We have Nelmont Deverell. He is a cousin to Donata, and he starts out being manipulative as well, but he goes on a very nice character arc, and he's not so bad toward the end. We have Mrs. and Miss Barrington. And now Miss Barrington is a former governess to the Deverell folks, the Deverell clan, and her mother, Mrs. Barrington, lives there nearby, near Deverell Court. So when Miss Barrington quits, quite abruptly, she goes back home to live with her mother, and they're right there in the neighborhood. Rhoda, we mentioned her earlier in the synopsis. Rhoda is the cousin that Donata played a very mean prank on. What Donata did, and she did this before our story begins. Okay, she did this off screen, so to speak. She wrote a letter, a love letter, and signed it from Rhoda to this other character. His name is George Willoughby. She had Donata had Rhoda saying that she was in love with George, and when George received this letter, he was like, "Oh, crap! Well, I'm engaged to someone else. I need to set this right." And so he traveled to Rhoda and was like, "Hey, I'm so sorry if you got the wrong impression from me. Please don't feel in love with me. Please don't be in love with me. Please don't feel that we are engaged in any way. I'm already engaged to someone else." And Rhoda was so embarrassed. She's like, "I don't understand what's going on." And they figured out someone had forged this letter. They figured out it was Donata. And Miss Barrington, the governess, was trying to convince Donata, "You need to apologize. You need to make this right. You need to, make friends with your cousin Rhoda once again. You need to apologize to her. You need to apologize to George." And Donata has consistently been against apologizing for this. She has blamed George for it blowing up consistently throughout this. She's a little Nellie Olson, okay? She blames George for making it a bigger deal than she thinks it should be, okay? So yeah, she has not come forward and apologized. And because she couldn't get Donata to apologize, Miss Barrington considered that the last straw, and she quit and left. Okay. Let's talk about our themes in the novel. We have the theme of propriety throughout this novel. It is very much a look at the Regency era. Okay, it's very much a look at what are the things that a young lady should be learning to do and should be learning not to do. Little Miss Donata is just this spoiled little rich kid, like I mentioned in my synopsis. She does run around the countryside with her male cousins, doing things that are just not proper for a young lady to do if she wants to be seen as a proper young lady. She goes on a rat hunt. She goes hunting for rats with the guys. This is just not the kind of proper thing that a young lady back then would do. Okay. She also sneaks into the governess's room and gets into a drawer where that was locked. She found the key, and she gets into this drawer that no one knows what's in the drawer except Donata. A former governess that Donata has made mad and made go away had left some novels in that drawer. They were locked away for a reason. These are novels that are not proper for a little young lady to be reading. Okay, so Donata has gotten into this drawer and gotten the novels, and she's reading them all the time. At night, she's reading through these novels. Yeah, so she's not a proper young lady. So those are some of the themes one of the themes that we have going through this. The other theme we have going through this novel is that of faith. And I found that to be refreshing in a novel, but to be expected of a novel from 1954. Okay, it was just a different time back then. So this theme of faith was running through here, and I want to share with you on page 17. This is the first page of chapter 2, when Elizabeth is just getting ready to go out into the world. She's going to leave the orphanage. And as she's leaving the orphanage, the headmistress, Miss Tadcaster, is giving her some verses, Bible verses, and a hymn, and some thoughts to go in her thought book. So she's writing these down in her, it's not a diary, it's a thought book where she would write down things that are going to like carry her and give her strength as she goes forward in the world. And the hymn on this page, on page 17, you guys, this was well timed to be reading this, okay? But it says, plant and root and fix in me all the mind that was in thee. Settled peace I then shall find. Jesus is a quiet mind. Anger I no more shall feel. Always even, always still. Meekly on my God reclined. Jesus is a gentle mind. And so the whole orphanage is singing that particular hymn on her last day there. And so she puts that hymn, those verses, into her thought book. And I really liked that. You guys, it was good timing to read that one. Then on page 77, let me go there for you guys. On page 77, Elizabeth is talking to Mrs. Barrington, the mother of the Barringtons, and she's sharing with her that she feels inadequate. Again, she's feeling like she just doesn't measure up. But Elizabeth has just recently shared with Mrs. Watson a Bible verse that was calming and soothing to her. She shared it with Mrs. Watson because Mrs. Watson is the one who is the grandmother of little Tibby. Remember, we mentioned little Tibby Marsh in our character list? Tibby Marsh is at the orphanage. She's 5 years old. She's there because her mother has passed on. The mother is the daughter of Mrs. Watson. Mr. and Mrs. Watson were disappointed in how their daughter married, and Mr. Watson didn't quite forgive her. So when the child was born, they didn't want anything to do with that family, the child, the parents. Okay, they didn't want anything to do with that. So when the daughter passed away, the parents passed away, the child, Tibby, was sent to an orphanage, and Mr. Watson didn't care, didn't want anything to do with it. But Mrs. Watson has always wanted her granddaughter. Always. So when Elizabeth is talking about the children at the orphanage, and Mrs. Watson says, "Oh, I miss my granddaughter. Her name is Tibby," and Elizabeth's like, "Oh, hey, I think I know your granddaughter." There's this moment where Mrs. Watson is like, "I wish that I could convince my husband to let Tibby come live with us." And Elizabeth shares a psalm with her, and Elizabeth feels inadequate and she feels like maybe I shouldn't have done that because Mrs. Watson is so much older than me. Why was I sharing with someone who's so much more mature, so much older, so much more experienced? Why was I doing that? And I love what Mrs. Barrington says to her. Okay, so we're on page 77, and we have Elizabeth speaking first. "I am not sure that I do know what it means in all the big things of life," said Elizabeth humbly. "In the little things, yes, but where important decisions are to be made, no. Perhaps it was presumptuous of me to offer any advice to someone so much older than I am, who was undergoing a great trial. But I was so sorry for Mrs. Watson that I couldn't help telling her of the words that had helped me in a little trial." Mrs. Barrington said quietly, "It can never be presumptuous to remind a fellow sufferer that in returning and rest shall ye be saved. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. My long life has shown me that the troubles, even of Christian people, are caused by their relying on their own strength, putting their trust in themselves, and choosing their own way." Isn't that pretty? Isn't that nice? Okay. You guys, this book was very well timed. I mean, I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I purchased this book because I wanted to read more from Constance Savery. I wanted to read more from, that another lady that helped finish Emma by Charlotte Bronte. But this particular book, when it came, I didn't read it right away. It took me a week, maybe two, to get to it. The timing of it was perfect. You guys, I got to it during the week of Charlie Kirk's murder. During a week when I was I was sad about that, but I found myself angry by some of the reactions to Charlie Kirk's murder. I was disappointed and sad and angry that fellow humans were being so ugly toward a fellow human who was gone, a fellow human who had been gunned down. I was angry, and some of the reminders about peacefulness and being still were just perfectly timed. It took me one evening to read this book. I mean, it's only, what did I say, 138 pages? It's not long. It took me one evening to read it. And that one evening was a very good thing. Okay. It was well timed, is what I'm saying. I mean, it's anger I no more shall feel, always even, always still. Meekly on my God reclined, Jesus is a gentle mind. You guys, good timing. Thumbs up for Constance Savery. Thumbs up for young Elizabeth Green as a good, just a good, feel good, well-timed, pleasant, pretty novel. I can highly recommend to young adults and adults alike. Good novel. Good. Very good. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in.